Hi friends, my name is Katie Marcucci, author of Air Force Ace, a story I wrote for children, especially military children, to help unveil the mystery behind deployment and answer those tough questions that always come up when our little ones are missing their family member who's far away. Before I begin, I'd like to thank the new parent support program at Presidio and also the Army Community Services at Fort Ord for asking me to do this. Now, I know the book is called Air Force Ace, but whether you're a Marine, Navy, Army, active duty, National Guard, or Reserve family, unfortunately, we all share the commonality of a deployment. So I'm really excited that hopefully so many families from all different branches are watching this and have this book in hand. And if you do have this book in hand, please follow along. We're gonna, after the reading, we're going to answer a couple questions, and as well, hopefully we'll get a special appearance by the star of the book himself, Ace. So, open your book, please, and follow along with me. Air Force Ace. Ace was a dog, a smart dog. For days he sensed something important was happening in his house, but he couldn't quite figure out just what. Early the next morning, it became clear. With the sun still in bed behind the fading stars, Ace was awakened by the sound of his daddy stacking suitcases by the front door. His large work bags were packed full and bursting at the seams. Ace had seen this before. He remembered the last time those bags were packed, Mommy told him Daddy was leaving for a deployment, which meant he'd be away from them for many, many days. He wouldn't be home at dinner time to play with him or to kiss Ace goodnight. More than anything, what Ace really remembered was how much he missed Daddy. All of this made Ace sad, but he knew deployments didn't last forever. Just like last time, Daddy always came back. But this wasn't just like last time. Ace was now a big brother. He had a little brother and a baby sister to look after, and neither of them knew what deployment meant. Surely they'd ask many questions. But would he have the answers? Ace worried. Ace watched Daddy set his last green bags by the door. He watched carefully as Daddy walked into little brother's and baby sister's bedrooms, knowing he was kissing them goodbye. Then Ace felt a final pat on his furry head and sat next to Mommy's feet as she hugged Daddy tightly. It was at that moment Ace decided he had to know more. Does anybody have bags like that in their household? Ace was determined to discover the answers to the questions he knew little brother would have. To know what to say to Mommy and baby sister on days when they were missing Daddy. He had to find out what this thing called deployment was. After all, he was the dog of the house. While Mommy and Daddy were still holding each other, Ace quietly crawled into Daddy's final suitcase. Soon he heard the zipper close him in and felt himself being wheeled out the door. It might have been scary, but Ace was a brave dog. And in this particular illustration, if you look right here, you'll see Ace tucked away, sneaking aboard. And that's my son's favorite picture right there. From what Ace could tell, he and Daddy took a short drive to base where Daddy's airplane lived, because the next sound he recognized was the whirring of the MC-130J engines getting set to take off. You can see that plane right there. Luckily, Ace, smuggled inside Daddy's suitcase, had made it aboard. Even better, Ace discovered beef jerky to eat amongst Daddy's clothing. With a snack and a soft place to rest, Ace fell asleep as the airplane took off. He knew it would be a long journey before they arrived at Daddy's deployment, but Ace was a great napper. And there's Ace again, right there. Shh. This is my favorite illustration here. Indeed, it was many hours before the plane arrived at the deployment place. A big bump followed by a screeching stop let Ace know he was on the ground. And my, how different from home these grounds were. The minute Ace heard the aircraft doors open, he nuzzled his way out of Daddy's suitcase and seized his chance to explore. The first thing he felt was the hot brown dirt beneath his paws. This deployment place felt like summer to Ace. Ouch! He needed to find some shade. Ace followed his nose to the nearest building, which happened to be giving off delicious smells. 2. Poking his head inside, Ace knew he had found the chow hall, where all the airmen ate their food together, like a big family. He recognized the scents of spicy tacos, cheesy lasagnas, juicy hamburgers, and even scarfed up some crispy bacon that had been dropped. And I also like this this illustration, because we also have to remember that there are daddies who deploy, but there are also mommies too, right? And there's a woman right there. Deployment had all the meals Daddy enjoyed at home, even ice cream. Ace could hardly believe his eyes when he saw an airman eating a chocolate ice cream cone. There was lots of chatter too. Everyone was busy talking, laughing, and telling stories. Ace was happy to know Daddy was in a place with good food and happy friends. Ace's ears perked up when he heard an airman ask another if he was ready to play. Ace loved to play. He was amazed and thought, I'm definitely following them. He tagged along behind the 2 airmen, soon finding himself amongst many more. On an outside court, he saw a large group of people playing basketball. Others were lifting weights nearby, tossing a football, or jogging around a dusty track. Ace was learning the importance of exercise during deployment, and it brought him comfort to know Daddy was staying healthy while he was away. Do any of your mommies or daddies dress like that? In those outfits to work out? Ace joined in running the rings of the track like he and Daddy often did together at home. It felt wonderful to stretch his legs after the long trip. But afterwards, Ace grew tired, and he knew he had to find a soft place to rest. It had been quite the journey. His paws turned toward a row of dark and quiet buildings nearby, perhaps the perfect place to rest. And indeed it was. Ace found himself in a room with row after row of beds. They weren't fancy, but they sure looked inviting. As he wandered the room, he saw many photos of happy families next to each bedside. Laughing children hugging smiling parents, mommies and daddies holding babies, and lots of happy dogs next to their favorite airmen. One bed looked and smelled particularly inviting. Ace could not help but curl up on its pillow. He was very talented at sleeping and was snoring away in the blink of an eye. And if you look right here, this is what I like to call the Easter egg. The illustrator put actual pictures of Ace's family in there. Ace had no idea how long he'd been asleep, but his eyes opened immediately at the sweet sound of a most familiar voice. Ace, how can it be you're lying here in my bed? He heard Daddy exclaim. Ace didn't answer the question, but rather gave Daddy hundreds of kisses. How happy he was to see his dad. Daddy in turn looked concerned. Ace, I'm so glad to see you, he said, stroking his fur. I love you so much, and whenever I'm away, you can't imagine how much I miss you and our family. But a deployment is not where you should be. Ace looked a little hurt. Daddy continued to explain, deployments are very busy with lots of helping to do. Sometimes that means we work long hours or use heavy equipment made for grown-ups only, or even travel to distant places for a few days. We wouldn't have anywhere to play together, and you would be very bored waiting for me. Here, let me show you. Ace stayed right by Daddy's side as they exited the barracks, returning to the hot dirt and bright sun. The whirring sound of the airplane engines grew louder as Ace and Daddy walked closer to the flight line. Daddy pointed out, over there is my aircraft, Ace, the mighty MC-130J. Ace instantly recognized its 4 propellers. The back of the aircraft was open and small vehicles with large crates were zipping in and out. My friends are working hard to load food and water so we can share it with those in nearby villages who are thirsty and hungry, explained Daddy. Pointing again, he continued, over there is a CV-22 down here. ready to deliver books and school supplies for local children. And in the distance, a C-17 is coming in for landing with more helpers on board ready to get these and other jobs done. Ace could see it was busy, hard, important work. He was sure proud of Daddy and the good he was doing on deployment. Daddy knelt down next to Ace and whispered, "Thank you for loving me, Ace, as I love you. At the same time, I need you to go home to Mommy and little brother and baby sister. You can tell them I am safe and happy and healthy because you've seen and smelled it yourself." Ace's tail wagged away. He was sad to leave Daddy, but glad to share this new information with his family. When the next aircraft returning home from deployment departed, Ace was on it, curled up next to other airmen who were done being helpers and excited to return home. Indeed, when the long journey ended and Ace jumped into the arms of his awaiting Mommy, he felt so much love and joy. Ace looked forward to the day when Daddy would step off that same plane and into his family's arms. In the meantime, they would miss him, but Mommy, little brother, baby sister, and Ace would all take care of each other. There you go. And there's Ace going to his family. I have to say, from a mommy who's done a lot of deployments, that's one of my favorite things is to get that first hug after a deployment, welcoming my family home and getting them all back together. So I'm sure some of you have experienced that too. So I wanted to answer a few questions that came in about Ace, especially the star of the book, and some other questions that came in about the inspiration and why I wrote the book. So I'll tell you a little bit about Ace. Ace was born in the Mojave Desert, which is in the corner of California, and we have had him, after getting him from the Los Angeles County Pound, for almost 14 years, which is very old in dog years. He is a world traveler. He has lived in, over probably 10 different states, and he's also been overseas. He loved being in England with us, and he very much enjoyed being able to go to restaurants there. Dogs are very welcomed in pubs there, so that was one of his favorite things as a pup. But now he's much older and he's kind of living a retired life here in California, but he still loves the beach. So that's one of his favorite things. One of his other favorite things is indeed bacon. I talked about that in the book. He really does like bacon a lot, like most dogs. He also really likes apples. That was one of the other questions that I got. Does Ace like any interesting foods? And when he was younger and wasn't so hard of hearing, he could hear me bite into an apple in one room and come running. And it's still one of his favorite things, but he just needs to have it kind of handed to him instead. Some other questions that came in were, how many deployments has Ace done? So Ace has experienced a lot of separations from his own daddy, like many of you children out there. I think he's had about 6 long separations. And they're hard on Ace. They're hard on all our animals, just like they are on the children and the mommies and the entire family. That was a lot of the reason that I wrote Air Force Ace, is because a couple years ago, my husband in the Air Force deployed, and I had 2 children at home. We were in Okinawa, Japan. And as a person who was not a military child, I had a hard time helping my own children through those emotions of what they were experiencing and answering questions. So I came up with a story to help answer some of their worries, and I thought, who better to tell it than Ace, who had experienced quite a few deployments by that point himself. So that's how it came to life. Now let's get to seeing the star of the show right here. So again, as I told you, my Acer here is a bit of an old boy, and this is where you'll find him often. And right now he's snoozing away, which he often does. But say hi, Ace. There we go. Yeah. So here's our military dog who's traveled all around the world and been with us for all of our time in service as well. So thank you for sharing your time with me. I hope you enjoyed the book. If you do, please like us on Facebook, Air Force Ace, a children's book. Please also follow us on Instagram. I post lots of pictures of the actual Air Force Ace enjoying his life here in Monterey, California. Our Instagram is at Air Force Ace Book. And also, coming in September, we will be partaking in Women in Aviation International's app that they're launching to get more girls especially involved in aviation, and that'll be launching on September 26th. So look for that. Again, that's Women in Aviation International, their Girls' Day, and their app going live on September 26th. So again, thank you so much. Thank you, Fort Ord community, and also thank you, Presidio, as well. Have a good one. Bye.